Welcome to you all today. It really is a great honor for all of us to have you here. And I think you're going to learn a lot. I want to ask you, if you do get offended by the truth, please bear with us until the end, because you may see the big picture. And that's what we're trying to do today, is to give you the big picture of medicine. And that's why we started with something called puzzling medicine, because it truly is puzzling. Why is it puzzling? Because, you know, one guy has a little piece here and he thinks that's the puzzle. And another person has another piece of the puzzle and thinks that's the complete picture. But it isn't a complete picture. And I'm sure there are pieces that I'm not going to cover today because I don't know those pieces, or we don't have time for it. But at least we're going to put the pieces of the puzzle together so that you can understand a bit more of it. So I've called it medical mayhem. It's a mess. We don't understand. It's chaos in medicine. I think it's fair to ask, well, if you're going to discuss something, what is it? What is medicine? Well, if you look back in history, you know, Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. I mean, it's such an old statement, but it is so true even today. And then there was, look at this one. All that mankind needs for good health is provided by God in nature. The challenge for science is to find it. And who said that? Well, the father of pharmacology, Paracelsus. Interesting. So, what is the purpose of medicine? What should it do? Well, there are various things. It must cure disease. It must protect the healthy. So if you're healthy, if you go to your doctor and you say, doctor, I feel fine, I am great, but what can I do to keep that way? You know, it might be a little bit of a puzzling question to him, but that is what it is. It needs to protect the healthy. And it also needs to prolong life. So it needs to help you to live longer. But is this still true today? And yeah, we can all say with a resounding, yes, definitely it is. Well, let's see. The USA and the UK are losing the war on cancer. That's in the Journal of American Medical Association. If you go into hospital, there's a 1 in 6 chance today that it was caused by some medical procedure that went wrong. We find that the Journal of American Medical Association admitted that iatrogenic deaths, which means doctor-induced deaths, iatrogenic, is the third leading cause of deaths in the USA. That means 250,000 people die every year. In fact, just over 100,000 people die every year due to correctly prescribed drugs. The doctor didn't make a mistake, he gave it correctly, but the people die. 10,000 Britons die every year from a drug reaction. I mean, they're a small country, so that's a big number for them. A head of a drug company, which I won't mention, said recently that 90% of their medicine, of their company, and it's a big company, or other pharmaceutical companies, 90% of it doesn't work. He shocked the world by saying that. So, is it still true today? Well, we probably got to say, I don't know. It's something that we'll have to investigate. But you see, the thing is that we get two kinds of medicines. And the first kind of medicine is called the bug theory. And the second one is called the terrain theory. And I'll explain those to you. The first one, the bug theory, says if life is there and disease strikes, you have something that we have in our arsenal, and it's called a drug. And we use the drug and it goes against the illness that you have. And it suppresses the eczema or the asthma or the cancer or the whatever it could be. And we call this also cut, burn, or poison. And you'll see why. Cut means is when we operate on you. They cut you open, you've got a tumor, slice it out, your appendix, slice it out, your tonsil, slice it out, hysterectomy, all those things, you cut it out. The second thing we can do is to burn it. You know, there's a bug, we can put up a big linear accelerator and burn it, like a microwave, just an oversized microwave oven. The third thing you can do is you can poison it. And you might say, wait. That's a bit arrogant. Well, let me explain to you what a drug is. See, a drug is an interesting thing. They take 100 mice on average. Then they give a substance, your blood pressure medication or your whatever that you're taking. They're giving that to 100 mice and they say, well, let's give it until such a point as when 50 of the mice are dead. And at that point, we call that the lethal dose 50 percentile, for short the LD50. And the LD50 simply means that half of the mice are sort of still alive. And they use X percentage of that to give you a therapeutic, that's called a therapeutic dose. Is this true? Well, take your medication when you go home tonight and check on it. It's got a S1 to a S7. Okay? So if it's really, really potent stuff, it's got S7. So if you take 2 tablets instead of 1, you have a 50% chance of dying. But if it's a S1 like a Aspro or something like that, it may be that you have to take 2 boxes to die. So you understand that the lethal dose is much higher on some and much lower on others. So if you take just a little bit of some, you know, you're dead. Those Schedule 6 and 7s, they're the one that's, you know, they have a register, they lock it behind almost in a safe to keep it out of reach, because if you get hold of it, you know, can be big troubles. So that is what a drug is. If it doesn't have a Schedule 1 to 7 or it doesn't have a lethal dose, it means it's not a drug. Water is not a drug, see, because water has no lethal dose. If you have 20,000 liters, it's still safe unless you sort of fall in it, but you can also drown in a cup. So a friend of mine incidentally said, if you intend drowning, don't drown in a cup, you know, do it decently. But anyway, that's just... So what does the drug research show us? That millions are spent on developing the drug. That's what they all tell us. That's why the drug is so expensive. In actual fact, if you look at this, this is not thumbs up. You look at the financial statements of these companies because they're listed on the stock exchanges of the world. You look at it, you'll see that 10% of their annual turnovers are spent on researching of new drugs. 90% is spent on fooling you. It's called marketing. That's what they do. So, when they have a drug, it's got a patent right on it then. A patent is when you take something from nature and you say, so this is nature, you take this active ingredient, you isolate it in the laboratory and you say, I can synthesize this. I can make this into something that only I can make. Then you can you have a patent on it. You can't patent a herb because it's God's goods, but you can patent some other stuff if you can make it in the laboratory. So that's what they do. Now, patent means income. So when I've got the patent for an X number of years, I can solely distribute this and I can charge whatever I like. So what that means is, when I draw near to the end of the patent, that's when I have to develop a new drug. So that's exactly what the company's doing. They don't do a new drug for giving you something better, because there's less than 1% of the drugs on the market, maybe 5% if we're gracious, that is actually better than the previous one. If you consider that the guy said 90% don't work, this makes a lot of sense. Why do they do it? Simply to gain a new patent. And they spend of their budget then 90% to tell you that this is a better drug. So if it's a better drug, then we can sell it again. And we can replace the old drug on which, by the way, the patent right has fallen away, and we can do something new now. And the other guys can now make that, but we've got the new one, which is the better one, obviously. So that's the way it works. There's no cancer research being done at this moment on spreading of tumors. All the cancer research that's done is on shrinking the tumor. If they can show that you've got a breast cancer and we can shrink it by 3%, you've got a drug, you've got a deal, you can make it, you can sell it. Because, praise God, we've got something that works. The fact that you've got one here, and that's besides the point. We can shrink those. But we can't stop the spreading of it. See? So that is where, by the way, there's virtually no research being done on more antibiotics, because it cures something. You don't have repeated business. All the research is in repeated business. See, if you spread if you stop the spread of cancer, it won't reoccur. But if you can shrink it, you can shrink this one, it costs $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. So there's lots of money into it. So this is the puzzle of cut, burn, and poison. Is it all bad? No. But what it does for you is can manage disease. If you've got diabetes, it can't cure it. It can manage it. You've got arthritis, can't cure it. Can manage it. Okay? We can control the pain symptoms. We have no real solution, but we can control those symptoms. And it's illegal for anybody else to say that they can cure a disease. Okay? You cannot say that. But let me tell you one thing. Where you do see the miracles happen is when there is a trauma. Like if somebody drops dead and have a heart failure of some kind. A friend of mine's wife the other day went into theater, came out, and he said to me, it's frightening. I stood watching at the monitor and it was all flat lines. Boo! They struggled 45 minutes to bring her back to life. 45 minutes. They cracked a few ribs and so, which is good. Because she's alive today and she's fine. No brain damage, virtually no brain damage, kidneys functioning, only by God's grace. But you know what? That's a miracle happening. I mean, if you see an ambulance rushing to a trauma scene where there has been a car accident, don't expect your homeopath to come along. It's not going to work. You need the guy to be able to sew it up, stop the bleeding, do all those wonderful things. That's where, if you go into the trauma unit, you see the miracles happening by the second. But for chronic disease like sinus and arthritis and cancer and simple things like that, it's very difficult. It doesn't work so well. So, allopathic medicine, that's when the body sends a signal and we are looking for a virus, a bacteria, or some kind of pathogen. I've got the sinus, so we need to, or maybe you've got a genetic defect. Your father had sinus, your grandfather had sinus, and sometimes they do. And we need to find that gene and isolate the gene and switch it off. Or what we must do is we must cut, burn, or poison it. You know, if there's something in there, cut, burn, or cut out the nose, you know, like drill in holes if it's blocked, something like that. The fact that it's from the food that you eat is immaterial, but we'll drill it open. And then we have the second theory, and that's what we're going to spend the most of the day on. That is the terrain theory. And that is something that you can practice every day in your life. And that is when you are planning to build a house, you need somebody with a plan to be able to read it, to see what's going on. It reads the plan, then it needs the building blocks. And the building blocks are various. You don't only need bricks when you build a house. You need water, you need cement, you need all kinds of things. And then, most of all, you need a competent builder. He looks at the plan, takes the bricks, and builds the house. And that's what you find. The house is built, and sometimes it's a very beautiful house. And sometimes, if the builder or the bricks or the building material aren't so good, you know what those houses look like. But it's called a house, but it's not a good and solid house. Okay, and so this is the same in your body. The plan is the DNA. That's the way God made you. You've got a DNA. Then you have the nutrients, which are your building blocks. Those are the stuff that you get from your food and supplements and so forth. And then we have enzymes. Enzymes are the builders. So enzymes are the people that represents the builder. And then it builds a beautiful you. Now, by the way, we're all different. Why? Because the DNA of all of us are different. God kind of likes variety. You can just look down the road and you can see that. So we're all different. Now, this is the terrain theory. So we have the DNA, and then what we have there is the actual terrain, which is your body. That's when you plant. Think about your garden when you plant. If there a good and well-nourished terrain, you've got good compost and all those things in, and you have the enzymes building what it should be, which is in this case the enzymes, and you're taking good food, you put all the good food in your body, or you put the good food into the garden, same thing. Then what we find is we grow a beautiful plant, and it blossoms and it looks like it is intended to. But as you all know, we have a few of those because in the last few months we haven't been able to look at our garden well. And so what we find is that the nutrients that are supposed to go in doesn't always go in. And so they disappear, and what we find then is that it's sometimes replaced by some other wonderful nutrients. Those are the sweeties, and the colas, and too much coffee, and wonderful chocolate cake, and all those things. We put those in, and candies. And suddenly, those are the stuff that the enzymes take, look at the DNA, enzymes takes it and builds something, and with all that it has, this is the picture that you're looking at. And suddenly, those anti-nutrients are absorbed into your system. And what you find then is that you get overgrowths of something. Or some of the stuff shrink and it doesn't develop the way it's supposed to. Or some of the things disappear, it shrivels away. Or it totally disintegrates. So, what is the difference between these two theories, the bug versus the terrain theory? Well, if you fall ill today, what is it that causes it? What makes sense to you? I mean, why is it that, if somebody sneezes and you breathe, why would it be like you won't catch the flu and you would catch the flu? Why is that? Is it due to your gene? Could be. Like every time it's in your genes, every time somebody sneezes, you catch the flu. Highly unlikely, okay. Or if somebody sneezes and there's a lot of gunk already in your system, you catch it. Doesn't that make more sense? But see, what we try to find in the allopathic model is we want to find the bug, kill the bug that makes you sick. So you're already sick, and we put more poison in you, because it's got the LD50, so we put more poison in you. So either that or correct the dirty terrain, clean it out. Yeah, it makes more sense. So what we find is, if you look at life, and something happens to you, like some kind of a disease strikes, what should we do? We should do only three things, and that is we should clean out the system, we should nourish it, and we should balance it. So cleanse, nourish, and balance is all that you can do to your body. Cleanse, nourish, and balance. And what happens then? The plants start growing. Wonderful. Because we've cleansed out all the anti-nutrients, we've put in the good nutrients, and the system is balancing. So if we look at that picture of us again, where we had the very unhappy flower, what we need to do is we need to take out the anti-nutrients, put in the good nutrients, and when we do that, stuff starts coming back to the normal size, there's no overgrowth due to hormones, and we become happy. And our body smiles at us. So, the bug theory. When disease strikes, you need to cut it out, burn it to death, or you need to poison it. The bug that's in there somewhere. If it's a bug causing it, it's immaterial. We need to find the bug and kill it. Or we'll drill it open. That's called unnatural medicine. Then we have another kind of medicine. That is when disease develops. You need to clean out the gunk or the toxins that is in the body. We need to nourish or replace the missing nutrients. And then thirdly, we need to balance the systems of the body. What is balancing? Well, you need to stop eating this and eat a balanced diet. You need to do a little bit of exercise. This kind, not this kind. Parachuting is probably not the best one to do, although it's great fun. But there are other kinds of things that is less life-threatening. This is called natural medicine. So, unnatural medicine says we do three things. We cut, burn, or poison. Natural medicine says we do three other things. We cleanse, nourish, or balance the system. So let me introduce you to a few of the common natural practices that surround there. Because, what do you talk about if you talk about a natural doctor? You call him a homeopath. That's right. And that's all exists. No, it's not. Let me tell you. There is actually a herbalist. Now, if you think herbalist, you think, China. Most of them are. In fact, they've got such a stunning system. While you're healthy, you pay your herbalist monthly, and he gives you a little packet of herbs. You swallow it every day. It tastes vile. But when you get sick, it's his fault. You go back to him and say, oh, now I'm sick. What now? He says, oh, now I treat you for free. Don't you think that's quite the opposite of billions and billions of dollars and rands? Yeah, quite so. So I'm looking forward to somebody that's going to start a system like that. I think it'll be awesome. Now, a herbalist is Chinese medicine, Chinese herbal medicine, or traditional Chinese medicine. This is what it is. They have herbs that are similar to Western herbs. They have weird names for it, which we don't pronounce or can't pronounce most of the time. If you see the ingredients on a bottle, you have no idea what they are unless you look them up. Then you got Ayurvedic medicine. Ayurvedic medicine is a specific system as well, where they use other kinds of medicines. They look at the body in a different way, but that's a different system. They also, what's nice about them is they integrate cooking into the system. So they use what is called food that makes sense. So they use certain herbs in the food to bring out flavor, heat up the body, cool down the body, all kinds of very interesting things. But we're not going to go into that. And then we have Western herbalist, or a phytoscientist. Phyto means plant. So you use plant material to help people. And next one is a nutritionist. That is somebody that uses vitamins, minerals, and he could help you in a diet. Don't confuse a nutritionist with a dietitian. I'm married to one. I know the difference. It's totally different. A nutritionist will actually give you a supplement that you need and advise you on how to change things, whereas a dietitian will tell you, listen, everything you need is in your food. Whether it's been picked 6 months ago, it's still there. Just believe me. My book says it's still there. Difference. Okay? So we don't say a nutritionist is a dietitian. It's not the same thing. And then we have something called a chiropractor. And somebody says, my mother always called it a ruk and pluk doctor. You know, I got such a fright when I first had to go to one, but I developed the mother of headaches. And it just went, and I said, 150 Rand and I'm fine. Amazing, you know, they put you into hospital, put you into traction, all kinds of weird things. You go to this guy, very gently goes click, 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 and you click back into shape. What do? They don't do the same thing as a physio does. So don't think that you can go to a physio instead of a chiropractor. Physio works on the muscles, which are much needed sometimes. And they've got all kinds of weird and wonderful machines with which they do that. And they massage. You see at the rugby, they always massage the rugby players, you know, when Osduran sits and its one leg is damaged, you know, and he goes back into the scrum. He's got a big bandage around it. That's the physio usually that does that. But the chiropractor, what happens is if you have a muscle that, or say you stress a lot, the muscles pull the skeleton skew. And then the vertebrae disalign, misalign. And what they do is if you go to a physio, he'll work on the muscle. And it'll feel better, the muscle, but it'll come back and come back and come back because the skeleton is skew. So what the chiropractor does is he goes and he corrects the actual vertebra or the bone or whatever that's moved. But the muscles are still stressed, so they'll pull it out again. So you have to go back, 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 back for 3 or 4 times until it's corrected. And then maybe if you stress again, 6 months from now, it'll happen again. Unless you correct, and we'll discuss how you can correct your terrain. But that's what a chiropractor does. It's very safe. Never has there been a chiropractor in recent history that's killed anybody. It's like a nutritionist. You know, I always say you can take a lot of pills, just have a major bowel movement, and you'll be probably healthier afterwards. So they don't only adjust the muscles, they adjust the skeleton. Some of these are intertwined. You may find a chiropractor that uses homeopathic medicine or a chiropractor that will give you a vitamin, because these things don't stand alone. It's pieces of the puzzle that fit together. And the more they can overlap, the better results you will get when you go to your practitioner. A next one that we then have is the famous homeopath. The famous Dr. Samuel Hahnemann is the guy that developed this. In fact, the way he developed or discovered this, he was a normal doctor traveling on his horse cart, and one of his pills fell off, and what he found was after he had traveled, I mean, how many horse miles, you know, he found that this one that shook a bit in the horse cart was so much stronger than the others. And it's a very long explanation. I don't want to explain the whole thing to you. But what they found is if you put some substance, a tiny bit of substance, into let's say 1 part of substance to 100 parts of water and you shake it, it becomes incredibly strong because it's with the energy that the energy from the one molecule is transferred into the rest. It's got nothing spiritual to it. In fact, if you go to laboratories like Natura or Heal, it's all made by machines. It's got nothing to do with, somebody sitting praying over something. Having said that, you do get, all kinds of people behind the pill. If I was to give you this pill here, and I had X kind of religion, does it make this pill that religion? No, obviously it doesn't. But, we'll discuss that in maybe the last session today. But the point is, homeopathic medicines are wonderful. They are very diluted herbs that you use, so it's safe for children, it's safe for babies to use. It works with the symptoms of the body. So in other words, if you've got sinusitis and you take a homeopathic pill, what you'll find is that you'll get worse and then you get better. Why? Because it brings out the stuff inside there. If you drink an allopathic pill, it'll just shut down everything in there, and then it's all blocked, and the doctor says, I've got the solution, I'll drill it open. It's different. Okay, so you drink a homeopathic pill for sinus and it gets worse. And you say, no, this is, stuff doesn't work. But 3 days, 4 days, 5 days later, you're fine. And you can stay fine for a long while then. It can be very quick acting because what people will tell you is, you go for the natural medicine when you've got a long time to heal. But geez, if you need to be good tomorrow, this is when you take the toxic stuff. No, it doesn't work like that. If you take the correct nutrient or the correct homeopathic remedy, it works instantly. Instantly, absolutely instantly. And you get wonderful remedies on the market. Like I say, it's safe for babies. Some of you know I've given your babies little powders and it works. And sometimes, listen, it doesn't work. And that's when you have to revert to another modality. Maybe you need to use a herb. Maybe you need to use a vitamin. Who knows what it is? But the practitioner usually decides on that. But a classical homeopath, usually only uses homeopathic medicine. They will be reluctant to help you to take vitamins because they don't consider that as needed. Sometimes not, depending on who the person is. So common makes that is available in South Africa of those are Heal. Heal is actually a German company, absolutely stunning material. Well researched. It's used all over the world. Then we have the one locally, it's called Natura, which is also a very good company. You can deal with them. You find them in most health shops, in most pharmacies. They have some homeopaths actually use that. And then we have the tissue salts. Tissue salts are made by various people. I'll show you when we get to the supplement section what a tissue salt is. That is fantastic stuff to use in your house. Child can take, I remember years ago, we got a cough medicine from the homeopath, and we were up in Bloemfontein. And my little boy, CJ, of 2 years, drank the whole bottle, clunk, 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 and my wife stressed incredibly, phoned the homeopath, don't worry, he'll have a good bowel movement, but that's it. He'll be fine. If you take a allopathic medicine and you drink the whole bottle of cough medicine, you might have to go to the hospital to have your stomach pumped, something like that, some very big trauma, because it's toxic stuff. This won't do it. It's wonderful. You give the wrong remedy, nothing happens. You're safe. So, something else then, which is a more encompassing, is called a naturopath. A naturopath is usually, that can be a doctor in natural medicine. You can get a doctor in homeopathy, a doctor in herbal medicine, a chiropractic doctor. But a naturopath is somebody that looks at the whole picture. It looks at the body. He looks at supplementing, how you exercise. Do you need to go for an alignment of the spine or whatever that might be? But he uses a combination of herbs, vitamins and minerals. Sometimes he uses homeopathic remedies. He would advise you on the correct diet. So it's somebody that's got a little bit of a bigger picture of what to give you. What we often find is that those people want to make their own remedies because, they want to keep it secret. But let me tell you, in all honesty, sometimes it's needed, in very little cases. But there is so much on the market that you can literally, if you have the right knowledge, pick one and use it and he sees the patient as a whole being. So he will sometimes even help the person with an emotional issue. And we'll discuss that also in one of the sessions. So, unnatural doctor is the other one that you can find. An unnatural doctor, in other words, an allopathic doctor that says, oh goodness, this medicine of mine, doesn't work. And I know a lot of them, and they're very good people. And he finds out that, listen, my stuff doesn't work. This drugs doesn't work. There must be some other way. I give this to people. One guy said to me, I give it to and I see they don't get better. In fact, they get worse. So he goes and searches for the bossies, the bushes and the pills of the homeopaths. And he says, no, I need to study this because I think there might be an answer. That's a good thing. So it can be a safe alternative. At least my doctor that I go to is a normal doctor, is a Western doctor. And that's a good thing. But what happens? It's safe. You feel safe. But is it really that safe? You've got to always keep the big picture in mind because it could be that there is a lack of knowledge, of deep knowledge of the natural medicine. And what you find is, in an emergency, like you come in and the yellow stuff is running out here and back your throat, you've got a big sore on your leg. He wants to immediately give you the antibiotic, the one which he has been trained in. He knows it's safe. For him it's safe as well. So he goes there and he uses that. So that could be a concern. Just be very careful because I have seen this happen. You go to your homeopath, you trust him because, my doctor he's pro natural medicine. You've heard that. That's a good thing, but he doesn't know much about it necessarily. So you've got to be careful in an emergency that they don't revert back to cut, burn and poison because they're not so well trained in the natural remedies. Because they are just as strong and even stronger without the side effects that the chemicals will give you. But this is what it is. That's a last alternative that you have as well. So what conclusion do we have? You need to find somebody that will cleanse, nourish and balance you, not cut, burn or poison you. If you're looking for a practitioner. In the medical mayhem, in the medical puzzle, the puzzling medicine. It's such a puzzle, but maybe I've put a few of the pieces together so that you can understand that. They must have proven results. Usually the best thing is to hear from various people that is a good guy to go to. When he's booked up for 6 months doesn't mean much. Just could mean, that he's playing a lot of golf. But that's not necessarily something. He must have long-term efficacy with his treatments. Don't just treat it quickly, like taking an antibiotic for a sinus infection and you find that 2 weeks later it's back. I mean, I've been there for a long time until I learned how to correctly help it. And that, friends, is what I thought of telling you concerning the medical puzzle. I hope it makes a little bit more sense to you now. In our next session, we are going to look at blood and guts, and we'll look at all this, and we will definitely see some understanding of how the system works on the inside.